Man, I feel like it's been like 5 years since I've actually watched a new Chris Reagan video. This should be interesting. Wonder what he's up to these days.
1, 2, 3.
Hey everybody, Chris Reagan here. Welcome to another episode of Glasses Off, the show where we forego the crazy editing and zany antics to just talk about something for a little while. Feels weird to be here again after all this time, I gotta say. Today I want to talk about something.
Chris Reagan was one of the guys I watched a decent amount of back in the day. I feel like among all of the, I don't know what you would call, I guess anti-SJW skeptic YouTubers, I feel like out of all of them, he was probably my favorite just for the editing. I remember, well, the editing and his humor. There were a lot of jokes back in the day about him being like an iDubbbz clone. I don't think it was like a direct thing. I want to say he made a video about it at some point. I don't think it was like a direct copying kind of thing, but there definitely was some iDubbbz influence, but I feel like in a pretty good way. He was funny, and his editing was genuinely very impressive, so I used to watch a lot of Chris Reagan back in the day. Then he started dating that crazy feminist chick. Well, hopefully he, I don't know, enjoyed it. I don't know who you're talking about there. Oh, Lacey Green? Remember when he called Nick Diorio a sociopath for making videos on Bunty King of all people? Yeah, that was pretty funny. I think Nick has beef with this guy, but I don't exactly know what it was. I think well, in fairness, Nick was acting, okay. I like Nick Diorio. The DM he sent, though, with no context, he was like, Nick like messaged Bunty King and was like, hey man, just want to say, I really feel bad for you, you know, that you can't play Cyberpunk because you can't afford a new PC. He was like, let it be known that with the videos I made making fun of you, I will be buying a PC so I can play Cyberpunk in max settings with the most optimized graphics possible. And I think Chris Reagan tweeted it out and was like, this is sociopathic or something. And it was, but it was also really funny. It wasn't. It was also really funny. So what am I supposed, I mean, shout out to Nick, dude. We all have our sociopath moments. That's all I can say about that.
Something that has been frustrating me for quite some time, and I really hope that I'm not alone in this, because this is easily the kind of topic that a lot of people could be like,
yes, dude, sociopathically petty. That was the terminology. I think Nick put that in his Twitter bio for quite a while.
like, man, Chris, what the f***? Just relax. It's not that big of a deal. It's a big deal to me. If you've been on YouTube, TikTok, or Instagram at any point in the last, I don't know, 2, 3, maybe even 4 years, you've probably noticed a bit of a shift in the language that content creators are willing to employ on these platforms, specifically in content related to true crime, or just the news, or any kind of sensitive issue. You might have noticed people saying unaliving or unalived instead of murdered, or you might have noticed people saying graped or
Yeah, I mean, this is true. I do this in videos. I do this in a bunch of my videos, probably the majority of them. I mean, the reason why is because obviously people just noticed that if you use the word in a YouTube video, they'll either demonetize you or they'll like search ban it or something like that. They'll basically censor the video and you'll get no ads on it, so you can't make any money from your video. And it's like, on one hand, it's like, oh, you're making money from such a serious topic, and it's like, well, if the topic is done well, it's fine. And secondly, you know, the other aspect of it is like, you put all this effort into a video and this one word is going to get your video demonetized. Like, obviously it's a very frustrating thing. The reason why they do this is because, the reason why I do this and a lot of YouTubers do it is because advertisers have come around and they've been like, okay, like during the adpocalypse, what happened was basically before the adpocalypse, you could say whatever you wanted on YouTube, talk about any topic, and you were fine, right? You were totally fine. But then after that point in time, once the apocalypse happened, YouTube had these new guidelines where talking about sensitive issues would get you demonetized. You wouldn't be able to make money off of it, and you would have to do it, right? You would basically have to do it. And I know it's annoying for viewers. I don't like it. If YouTube would just monetize all the videos, I'd be like, F it, I'll say the word, I'll say himself. Like, it's cool. You know, it's fine. I think we should be able to say those words. The problem is that YouTube just demonetizes you if you do that. And then the flip side of that is like, okay, so YouTube demonetizes you because advertisers might have a problem with that word, even though they don't really, because they don't even have a problem if it's actually talked about on YouTube. YouTube just thinks the word would make advertisers angry. When there's been like legacy media, you know, productions on TV that have talked about these serious subjects that have had ads across the world, okay, across all of TV.
Hey there, looks like you didn't heed my warning, did you, little guy? Apparently, my message was lost on all of you. I said never goon, Not even once. Which is why I made this new swag t-shirt. See this t-shirt right here? We've got this beautiful runic writing, ancient manuscripts to remind you of what you can never do. It's got this epic death metal font you can kind of read sometimes, and an extremely tasteful acid wash to make it look more vintage for all you vintage kids out there who can't stop thinking about vintage things. It's vintage. Buy it, it's vintage. But it's getting so gosh darn cold out here. I mean, how am I supposed to not goon to keep warm? What am I gonna do? Oh, that's right. I made a pullover.
I heard that you've been gooning. What did I tell you, you fool, you little gooner? The scarecrow beckons. It is said by the Ancient One that gooning brings on unforeseen Euclidean horrors.
What does Euclidean mean? I don't know. Euclidean is a word. Euclid. SCP! It's also acid wash. We've got some cool designs here on the sleeves, on the front, on the back. We've got some cool imagery, messaging. It's good merch, okay? That's the point. It's good merch. It's high quality. I'm not even trying to talk it up too much here, but it is good merch. And if you like it, it's a great way to support the channel. And it's available only on turkeytom.shop for a limited time right now. And when it's gone, you won't be able to get it again. So, yeah. Thanks for buying. If you don't buy it, thanks for watching. But buy it. And don't goon. Or whatever, never goon, whatever you do.
Buy my merch, and whatever you do, never goon.
But because it's a YouTuber and maybe they don't necessarily trust that the YouTuber will do the content well or not tell people to, themselves, that they freak out about it. But ironically, in an effort to make these topics be handled better to favor advertisers, ultimately it does a disservice to them because you can't even say these words when you discuss them, which sucks. But like that is the reason why YouTubers do it. You can't really blame them for it.
Shade instead of or sexual assault. Guys, I'm not even joking when I say this, and this is really what ultimately made me want to sit down and record something. I was scrolling through like Instagram the other day, and I saw somebody use the word cornucopia instead of homophobia.
Wait, that's crazy. That's creative. On Instagram Reels, can you not say the word cornucopia? Oh, YouTube is a little better with this shit sometimes than other platforms like Twitch or Snapchat, but generally speaking, I think on YouTube you can say the word homophobia at the very least.
I cannot allow this. Now, that's not to say some of these euphemisms aren't entertaining, okay? I will admit, PDF file instead of pedophile, that's pretty funny. Or at least it was funny the first, like, maybe 4 or 5 times I heard it. It's a little played out now, but it's at least amusing in comparison to the rest of these. Although I don't know what's wrong with saying offed himself or things like that, like other euphemisms that we've had already for quite...
Yeah, I've tried to switch, because initially I was just doing what, like, okay, people were like unalive, so I was like, I'll say unalive. But now I try to say like ended his own life or something. So it's like you can dance around it with the wording, but YouTube won't pick it up as like a sensitive issue where it needs to be demonetized immediately. So that's kind of the way to do it, I think, probably for the best. But yeah, sometimes there is kind of some funny wording going on there for sure. Game ended. In Minecraft, he Minecrafted himself as a funny one. I like that one personally quite a bit. He Minecrafted himself.
Some time. Whatever, it's beside the point. Now look, I'm not an idiot entirely. I know that these words are flagged in the algorithm, and content creators are just employing these weird, awkward euphemisms to protect themselves. I understand that. They don't want to miss out on potential profits just because they wanted to make silly, fun little videos about the most traumatic moments in the lives of complete strangers. And you know what? If I'm looking at it from the perspective of a sociopathic demon, I understand. Personally,
he's like me. He gets it. I'm a sociopathic demon. To be clear, I think this is a little reductive. Like, are there people who cover these issues very insensitively and don't do it well? Yeah. But I would say on the Turkey Tom channel, most of the time we cover this stuff, we do a pretty good job. You know, you could say it's a complete stranger, like, yeah, but it's telling a story. People find stories interesting. Obviously, they find dark topics interesting. I feel like there's nothing wrong with covering these issues and making money off of it necessarily. It depends on how you do it. But I feel like this is a massive oversimplification of such an issue. You know? The majority of videos, I would assume, going over this stuff are not like silly, especially in tone or nature, or the way they care. The way that they conduct themselves is probably not in like, oh, people should unalive themselves now. Like, it's not like they're encouraging them to do it, you know?
Personally, though, and this is my opinion, this is a fucking putrid way to operate as a human being. For all the hysteria I see online about artificial intelligence and how it's going to ruin all of our art by removing the human element that makes art valuable to interact with in the first place, We sure are quick to sterilize the human experience to appease an algorithm as long as it's going to net us a few extra bucks. Oh wow, this...
But like you say like a few extra bucks as if this is like a trivial thing. It's literally the difference between $0 and like thousands. It's the difference between your business surviving and your business dying. It's like the idea it's like, oh, it's $5. It's not. It's literally like the difference between life and death for some channels. And on top of that, like I think some of these topics are important to cover. You know, I'm not going to act like all of my videos are the most important social commentary in the world. A lot of it is like lolcow shit that's kind of for sure. But like when I talk about a serious issue, I'm not trying to do a disservice to it or like do it out of disrespect. People obviously just find it interesting to talk about these subjects. Dark subjects are inherently morbidly, you know, that people find morbid curiosity from it. And by adding interesting social commentary to it, or by, you know, analyzing it or telling someone's story, you can enlighten the audience as to how people get to the point where they would do something like that. So I feel like this is just very reductive.
This complete stranger was viciously and I want to make a video about it, but I don't want to make anybody too uncomfortable because I want to make a little bit of money.
Okay, so this is like conflating things here, like too uncomfortable. It's not about the uncomfortability. If in every single video I could say they got, I would just say that, right? But like realistically, like I'm running a business. If I'm talking about this stuff and I'm putting effort into the video, I'm going to want to get some kind of return on it. YouTube in and of itself can be very difficult to get a return on these subjects. So you have to kind of dance around the wording now and then. You do have to. I feel like this is kind of moral effing over nothing.
Here's a thought. How about you say the words and treat the situation with the respect that it deserves to be treated with, or you don't fucking talk about it. It reminds me a lot of this George Carlin bit that I used to listen to a lot about the softening of language.
And the pain is completely buried under jargon. Post-traumatic stress disorder. I'll bet you if we'd have still been calling it shell shock, some of those Vietnam veterans might have gotten the attention they needed at the time. I'll bet you that. I'll bet you that.
And you know what? It wouldn't even be that big of a problem if this kind of shift in language just remained on the platforms that have the strictest guidelines. You know what I mean? It wouldn't be so big of a deal if it just kind of stayed on TikTok where the algorithm is particularly strict. But the thing that actively bothers me as a human being is that I see this language bleeding out, not only just to other platforms, but just in the way that people communicate on a day-to-day with each other in person. Like, dude, I've heard younger people just in conversation with each other say unalived and...
Well, if you have a problem with it, I feel like the people to criticize is YouTube. Like, YouTube are the people who did this, or the advertisers, alternatively. Like, this is not a decision that YouTubers want to make. They're forced into this position. So it's like, either you don't talk about serious situations and you can never, ever have any profit from your hard work when you're making these videos, or just nobody will ever do it and it won't be talked about. It won't even be a conversation. I don't like that children are using that terminology, but I would assume the majority of them that are know what the word is, and they're saying it mostly as a joke, I would assume. People casually saying unalive mostly do it to be cheeky. I mean, that's basically my assertion. I don't know everybody's personal experience, so maybe he actually heard someone say it, you know, unironically, but generally speaking, once again, I just think this is such a, I won't say it's a non-issue because I am frustrated by it, but like, this is just how the platforms operate now. You're being dense right now? How so?
essayed. You're not gonna get flagged. You're talking to other human beings about serious shit. It's fucking crazy. And I think it's actually bleeding out into like everyday in-person vernacular because it is the most common way to talk about these things on the platforms that have the most eyes on them. And it's the way that people talk about those things on those platforms that young kids are learning language through. Like, let's be real, dude. If you're a parent today, chances are your kids are on fucking TikTok and they're probably learning how to communicate with each other through that. And so that's really what's frustrating about it. It's not just that social media and the way that we talk about really dire, serious shit on social media is being like softened for the sake of advertiser dollars. It's also the fact that the ubiquity of that language and the ubiquity of that way of talking about it is bleeding into the way that we talk to each other in real human life.
I mean, I empathize with this frustration here, and I have ultimately, you know, I understand the frustration. I get it, right? I do get it. But like the problem is like, it's not even just from a money perspective. Like, let's say you're making videos about these topics in a totally altruistic way. You don't want to profit off of it. You don't want to make money off of it, right? You're doing the charitable hashtag wholesome chungus good guy thing, right? Like, let's say that is the case. YouTube is only incentivized to promote videos that make them money. So if your video is not monetized or your video is getting less money than others because the ad rates are lower, YouTube will actively promote it less. I have clearly noticed a trend in my videos where if a video gets limited ads, most of the time it will get way less views than videos that have green ads, and YouTube will deny it. But I've noticed a consistent trend with this. So realistically speaking, you're going to get your message out to less people if you use the proper terminology, unfortunately. And the people who need to hear it aren't going to be able to see it, you know? Like on YouTube, the frustrating thing is if you need help, let's say with like hypothetically let's say you have depression, you're in a very dark place, you're thinking about yourself, and you look for topics like on YouTube, you're gonna have a very hard time finding actual videos about it because YouTube will search ban you.
About real human experiences that now have the gravity and the seriousness and the humanity of those serious topics completely like sucked out and milked completely out of it. It's gross to me. And maybe I'm looking super deep into it. Maybe I'm like reading too much into it. But I really think it's fucking disgusting. I think it makes us talk past each other. I think it makes us not take each other as seriously. I don't know. To put it simply, I think to dress up the darkest facets of the human experience in childish costumes is to rob them of their weight, and I'm just kind of fundamentally opposed to it, especially in the content creator space, where I actually feel like there's no good reason to do that, actually. Because there's a lot of creators who engage in this kind of thing. There are a lot of creators who will use graped and essayed and unalived, but they're like content creators who upload every day. Like, so, and not every single one of their videos is about things like this. Like, oh, big deal, one of the 30 videos you uploaded this month is gonna get dinged. Boo fucking who? Do you know how infrequently I upload on this channel, and when one of my videos gets dinged, I generally just take it on the chin? Nearly every episode of the Snark Tank podcast is completely demonetized because we talk like fucking real people on it. And despite those monetization dings, we still make damn good money doing it. Could we make a little bit more if we—
What do you mean you make damn good money doing it? If it has limited ads, how? I don't understand. He makes damn good money doing it? Does he have a Patreon or something? The Snark Tank Podcast. Snark Tank Podcast. He's making damn good money doing it from a podcast that gets 15,000 views on average? How? It must be Patreon or something. That must be it. Patreon. Okay, so you have a Patreon with thousands of members. Maybe that is the reason why. You have a giant Patreon account. That's definitely the reason why. I think it's kind of obvious here. Not everybody has a Patreon. Not everybody can make money off of Patreon. Not everybody has such a loyal audience. And on top of that, realistically speaking, when he says like a couple extra bucks, that is not it. It is the difference between, in most cases, like maybe a couple $100 in a video with 1 million views or thousands. And those thousands of dollars can then be, turned into other content. It can fund your business. It can pay for a lot of people to live their lives. Like, I feel like this is just a very reductive way to look at this. It's scummy. I don't think it's scummy. I have sympathy with the general frustration.
If we talked like robots, maybe, but we don't need to. And that's ultimately the thing. None of the people sterilizing themselves in this way actually need to do it. You know, what really drives me crazy is like
what do you mean they don't need to do it? What do you mean they don't need to do it? Like, what position is he in to say who needs to do it or not? He doesn't even make money off of YouTube AdSense. He makes money from Patreon for a silly podcast, which is fine. But like, I think the people who do it definitely in most cases need to do it. There are videos with millions of views that get a ton of, clicks on them that talk about these serious issues. And most of them, well, I don't know about most of them. A lot of them that I have seen do it quite well. Like Explore With Us, they cover very serious situations very well. I think his frustration is justified, just misdirected. He should be mad at the platforms that lead people to talk like this. Yeah, I would generally agree with that.
chud channels that'll do this. You know, the so-called anti-SJW channels that like took the torch from our generation and ran directly into the fucking gutter with it. Oh, we're so counterculture, man. We tell it like it is. Never capitulate to the mob, man. Meanwhile, you go to their video and guess what? It's essayed. It's all the same fucking shit. Because again, God forbid one of my daily videos, one of my many, many daily videos gets dinged. Oh, I can't have that. I can't have that 1% hit to my fucking ad rev. Like a...
The Chud... Who's he talking about? The Chud channels? I guess he's talking about like, fuck, let me think, the quartering or something like that. I mean, even in the case of the quartering, I don't think he's shy about the fact that he wants to make money off of doing what he does, right? I don't think this is like a secret to him.
Of all the people that you would expect to not do that, you'd think that they would do it. You know, like, free speech, bruv. No, not even then. You know, George Carlin had the balls to literally get arrested for the jokes that he told, but like, no, I don't want to have a demonetized video. That's crazy. Why would I take on that personal risk? What's frustrating too is that
It's not even just personal risk though. It's like, oh, yeah, let's just do the smart thing and actually, I'm putting all this effort into a video. Let's not make any money doing it whatsoever. Let's not even try. The point is not to bow to YouTube, but I don't have any real qualms about that. Like, I don't like it. I don't like that YouTube, doesn't allow you to say these words. But if it's the reality I exist in, it's the reality I'm going to deal with. Like, I'm just going to deal with it. I'm going to ultimately do what I can to talk about the topics I talk about and also maximize the benefit I get from it. That's normal. That is the thing to do. It's like, oh, I made a 2-hour video about this subject. Let's just make $0 off it when I put thousands of dollars into having it done.
Is that a lot of the videos that I see that do use this language have sponsors attached to them, like integrated into the video, which means they don't even really have to worry. It's
You say have to worry, but like, would you not want to make more money if you can? Would you not want to make the most amount of money possible for the effort you're putting in? Is it inherently a bad thing to make money when you're talking about a serious situation?
It's my biggest pet peeve right now, I think. I don't know, dude. I know a lot of people who do this stuff. I've seen it, and I get it. I get the logic behind it. I understand what you're doing. I guess the only question that I would ask is it really worth it? Like, should we really be contributing to the sterilization of the human condition by, like, softening this language and robbing it of all of its weight just to please a bunch of ones and zeros and maybe have another $1,000 at the end of the year? Like, I don't know. I would argue not. But I would love to hear your guys' thoughts on this, because maybe I am just way too serious about it. Maybe I gotta lighten up.
I mean, I think it's okay to be serious about it. And I get his frustration. Like, ultimately, I understand it completely, and I don't like it. But it is just like, this is how YouTube works, This is like this guy says, it's the double standard. The mainstream media can say someone was murdered or sexually assaulted, and they'll be followed up with a BMW ad. Meanwhile, the plebs say it, and it's not advertiser friendly. Like, this is a YouTube platform problem. It's especially frustrating because, like, if you're a YouTuber trying to get started on this platform and you're talking about this kind of stuff, right? You want to talk about serious issues. You'll straight up just never be able to get your start if every single video has these words uncensored, because YouTube has no reason to promote you because you're not making them money. So it's a very frustrating thing.